It would have been flattened against the craft.
Yeah. The most famous UK UFO case took place in 1980 in Rendlesham Forest, where a bright yellow glowing pyramid-shaped craft landed on the forest floor near Bentwaters Woodbridge RAF base. Detective Constable Gary Heseltine has painstakingly researched this case with the full cooperation of Charles Holt, who was the American officer in charge of the base at the time.
In UFO historical terms, history-wise, it's probably regarded as the second most significant case after Roswell. Most people have heard of the 1947 Roswell case. It was made into an American TV film. I would argue that the Rendlesham Forest case is actually a much better case, not least that it's more recent, that all the witnesses, or principally all the witnesses, were military, that there was physical evidence, there was multiple sightings on different nights, and we know from many of the people involved that there was an element of interference in terms of many of the airmen who had witnessed things were interrogated. One of the men you mentioned, Jim Peniston, is a key player on the first night of the events, where he went out with two other airmen, John Burroughs and Edward Cabanza, having followed a report that there were lights seen approximately 300 metres away from the base perimeter at the east gate at Woodbridge. And they went off down a logging road and eventually went into the forest, and they eventually see an object, and they're following this object low through the trees as it meanders through the trees. Eventually just two of the men go forward, Burroughs and Peniston, where they come to a small clearing, and the object is on the ground. Cutting a long story short, Peniston approaches the object whilst Burroughs remains a short distance away, but witnesses everything. He describes it as being a triangular object, approximately 8 feet by 8 feet, in a triangular shape. It was on the ground. It was glass-like to the touch, warm to the touch, and it had symbols on, strange symbols, which he recorded in his police pocketbook, because he was an Air Force sergeant in the US Air Force Police. He made drawings, all of which were recorded in his pocketbook, and he walked around, took photographs of the object. The photographs mysteriously came fogged when he handed them in, and he got them back. They were all fogged, who knows why. But suffice to say that he is a man who to this day has a superb reputation. It has remained intact. Nobody's ever been able to claim anything about him. He's been investigated by many documented people, and he's always comes up clean, and he's a very good witness. And there's no reason why he should make this up. He has the evidence. What he also did, he was responsible for getting plaster casts of what turned out to be 3 impressions in the ground, which were approximately 8 inches by 1.5 inches deep into hard solid ground, because we're talking December 1980. And something obviously very heavy had made the impressions. There was physical evidence in the sense that there were marks on the ground in a perfect equilateral triangle. You know, he's one of the few people that's ever claimed to have got that close to a UFO and actually touched it, and he's a credible witness. So when the object did raise, it rose slowly in the air, total silence, made no noise, lights were emitted from within inside, and then took off at great acceleration, which is a classic UFO characteristic.
The craft was seemingly examining the huge quantity of nuclear weapons being stored at the Bentwaters base at the time. There are many more instances of UFOs examining nuclear storage sites, surveying the Earth's weapons capacity. UFOs have also on many occasions rendered missile launching systems useless. The darker side of ufology was born in the 1980s, with revelations surrounding the discoveries of Paul Bennewitz. Bennewitz was an expert in radio communications and tapped into secret messages being broadcast around the Dulce area in New Mexico. Benowitz worked out that there was a huge 2.5 mile deep underground base being shared by the military and extraterrestrials. Not only that, some of the activities taking place included human prisoners being held for a range of uses, including genetic experimentation. It's believed by many ufologists that there are huge secret underground bases all over the world.
Regarding the Dulce base, there was a lot of red herrings being thrown out by the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. Okay. So much disinformation, I don't know. All I can tell you is that I did hire a plane, I didn't fly it, but to overfly the site. It didn't learn much from that. I have been to the area. Certainly there were a lot of animal mutilations going on at that time in the area, but in my book, Unearthly Disclosure, I have revealed actual alleged locations of alien bases. So, you know, I've been quite specific. There was one in Virginia, for example, one in New Mexico, the Manzano nuclear weapons complex. There's a huge one, maybe two, in the Pacific Ocean.
Underneath the ocean?
Underneath the ocean, yes. And many other, if I can say, you know, in many other areas as well, in the Caribbean. There are quite a number. In Australia, there are quite a number.
In the early 1980s, ufologist Bill Moore co-authored the first book which investigated the Roswell incident. During the 1980s, Moore released information which was allegedly sourced from a government insider, including the MJ-12 documents, a set of secret documents alleged to be correspondence and reports from the top-secret MJ-12 group. Moore's reputation was seriously tarnished, however, by the fact that he later admitted he was being used to spread disinformation. Two more controversial figures in 1980s ufology were Bill Cooper and John Lear, who were responsible for publicizing sinister claims about the reasons behind UFO secrecy. In short, ETs had met with the US government and had subverted its leaders, allowing them to abduct human beings from Earth and be used in genetics programs. Also, that the government had assisted in providing the ETs with huge underground bases for their evil activities. In 1984, a highly controversial set of documents came to light, the MJ-12 papers, some of which have been proved to be fake. Nevertheless, whoever wrote the papers seemed to have inside knowledge of what was going on. In 1988, UFO researcher Timothy Good put many of the pieces together with his book Above Top Secret, widely regarded as the definitive work on this subject. Then, in 1989, Bob Lazar bursts onto the scene with mind-boggling revelations that the US government have in their possession 9 flying saucers obtained from extraterrestrials. Lazar is a physicist and worked on a secret government project to try and figure out how one of the flying discs worked. The gravity propulsion system described by Lazar was so precisely defined it is difficult to believe he was making this up.